Hi, my name is Nathan Engelhardt, and I'm an animator at Disney Animation Studios. Today, I thought it would be a lot of fun to draw the character Clawhauser from the movie Zootopia. Now, Clawhauser is very special to me because I was an animation supervisor on that show, and one of my responsibilities was leading some of the animation for that character, Clawhauser. So I thought that would be a really fun character to draw together with you all. So if you have a piece of paper and pencil handy, we'll dive right in and draw Clawhauser together. All right, so we got our blank piece of paper here and just a regular old pencil. And all right, we are off to the races. So in typical Disney character fashion, we are going to start with a ta-da ball. And you're done. Okay, there he is. No. All right, let's see. So we're going to start with the ball up here because we want to leave ample room for, he's got a lot of meat down below here for his face. We want to leave room for that face and the big smile and maybe even a little bit for his body. So we're going to build everything off of that ball, but just keep this in the back of your mind. So what we like to do next is go ahead and indicate on that ball with a slight curved line, because we're thinking about this as a dimensional ball that has roundness to it. And it kind of gives you an idea which way it's looking. We're going to go ahead, for the sake of this drawing, just draw Clawhauser straight on. So the first thing I like to do is find the eyes. The eyes are the window to a character's soul, so they say. And so grounding our character quickly with some eyes, you'd be surprised how quickly a character can start to emerge from very simple shapes. So what I like to do is start with kind of two guitar pick looking shapes, kind of sideways, almost like eggs or teardrops, something like that. And you kind of just have them angled a little bit like this. All right, this guy looks a little small. And no need to worry too much about getting it perfect. We're just trying to get some of the basic shapes in there. We can always come back later and draw a little darker on the shapes that we want to refine. So we're going to go ahead and we got our guitar picks. Looking okay. And then you'd be surprised when you put just little circles in there. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm starting to see a little character come out. So that's what I like to do. All right. One of the next things I like to do is start to draw in a nose, and that kind of will help me give an idea of where all the other features are. So we'll kind of explore and discover the drawing together as we sort of build out from this eye. So Clawhauser, he kind of has this little cat-like nose, just sort of like a little diamond that goes to this V right here for his nose. And then we can go ahead and if you kind of draw a V like that, it kind of gives you an indication of the front side of his nose. And this is kind of like the top, like that. And then you can draw a little line, and you can almost start to see a cat emerging. You know, get that very classic cat muzzle happening right there. And then what I like to do is just try to build the mouth from off of this line here. And so one of the really fun features about Clawhauser is even in his performance, we like to bunch a lot of his features together, and it kind of helps with that adorable feline quality. So a lot of his mouth shapes and even his hands, he does a lot of acting really close to his face just to try to, again, accentuate that really adorable cat-like quality. So what I like to do is start with a little bit of a line here. And wouldn't you know it, a pencil broke. That's okay, I got my handy dandy sharpener right here. This is what happens when I use my son's school pencils. All right. That looks pretty good, huh? All right. So what I like to do here is start with a line going down like that, and then just a subtle break right there at that corner. And a break is really just any time a line changes direction. Not all breaks need to be 90 degrees or 45 degrees. They could be very, very subtle. But that's basically what I mean when I say a break. So we'll kind of make it a little curved, not totally flat, but a little curved. And then we'll do another break coming up on this side. All right, so now we got a little bit of a smile going on. It's good. And sometimes I like to add a little bit of a crease right here, just to kind of indicate that that flesh is sort of folding over. You can kind of add a little curve to the cheeks here, just that those lips are kind of getting wrapped around a bit of flesh. And then you can do the same thing on the other side, a little curve next to the eyes. All right. And then, so you kind of get just the basic feeling of the expression, which is great. It's already kind of popping out with just a few shapes that we've got going on, right? Okay. One of the next things I like to do, now that I have kind of this smile, which is great, I mean, Clawhauser, I like to start to figure out his jowls, those really big jaw and chin area. So Clawhauser kind of has this sideways D. You can kind of see, even if I just kind of lightly draw in this D shape, you can kind of see D. But if you kind of draw on that D shape, well, I made it a little too square here. You can kind of start to figure out some of the proportions. Again, not being too precious with the lines, kind of erasing here and there. If I mess up, it's totally okay. We got our trusty eraser here. Something like that. And so this is your version of the character. You can, it's always great to do your rendition or style of Clawhauser, so it doesn't have to be exact of what's in the movie, but we like to try to get it as close as we can, and that's what we call being on model. Something is a character that is looking like itself, especially when you have a lot of animators animating the same character. You want them to look like one animator did it. So a lot of times proportions and things like that are very important. So now we have kind of a basic idea of our jowls and where they're going to be placed. Clawhauser, he looks cute with a closed smile. You can do that, but you can also do an open mouth smile. So I like drawing Clawhauser with an open mouth smile just because it just seems a little more fun. So what I like to do is build right off of this corner, and you can kind of see it's almost like a little V in that corner. You can almost make it a little upside down bell shape. You know what a bell looks like. Just like, boom, that kind of thing. So we're kind of flipping it upside down, and now we kind of have an open mouth, and you kind of want it to be a little more tapered to the, make it a little smaller towards the tip here. All right, look at that. He's smiling at us. All right, so, all right, usually all that meat's got to go somewhere when he opens up his jaw, so I like to put a little indication of a chin, just something that suggests that, you know, when he opens his mouth, some of this flesh is getting pushed down, and there's an effect there. If you really want to have fun, you can do one and then even a second one. That's kind of fun. You can get two neck rolls in there, but I'm going to do the one for now. So next, I'd like to try to travel upward to the cranium. And what's great is we already have kind of the top half of that ball, so it almost kind of fills in itself. You can kind of build up here, a subtle break, just to kind of start to give a little more squareness to that, so it's not an exact round ball. And then I like to usually just kind of go into a little faux hawk here, a little something there. You can add little splays or something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Kind of feather that. A good note here is sometimes when I get a little too dark with my pencil, it starts to detract from the main features I really like. Lines like this, they start to become a little too loud, shouting almost, "Hey, look at me!" And when I really don't want that. I want you to keep focused on the eyes, those windows to the soul. So a lot of times with our characters, you'll notice that we ground the eyes with an upper lash. Be careful not to go all the way around, otherwise it will just look like the character has mascara on. But if you kind of ground the character's upper lid, at least, you will start to bring that focus back into the desired location, which is right there, right in the middle. Okay, and it's at this point I like to kind of color in the pupil, iris and pupil, and I leave a little tiny space of white for that specular highlight, which is really just that white little dot in the eyes. And again, that kind of gives it, when you look in people's eyes, it reflects and light kind of bounces off and kind of gives you a little bit of that dimensionality again. We're not going for realism, but something that's believable. Another way I've seen artists do that specular highlight is has two little lines, almost like a rectangle or something. And that's okay too. It's really whatever you find more appealing. I'm going to stick with kind of my circle theme going on here and just kind of keep a nice little spot there. But you can already see that by just re-accentuating the eyes, really drawing our focus to that section again, which is great. That's what we want. Another great area to kind of draw focus is the mouth. That's another key area of information where we're going to get to know how this character feels. It's usually around this time I like to start slugging in a little tongue. You can kind of make a little, almost like a little heart shape if you want. It's a little, something like that. And sometimes it's cute to add this little tiny nub, kind of little teeth down there, just to kind of say, yep, he's got teeth in there. Sometimes we don't bother showing the top too. I mean, you could, I guess, if it was really small. As soon as you put a little too big of teeth in there, it can start looking like a different character. And it starts looking a little goofy. So sometimes, just for his appeal and what we would call being on model, we would want to just hide that just a little bit, just a little tiny. You can keep that. Or no teeth, either way. Great. All right. Well, he needs some ears, doesn't he? What I like to do is kind of look at around where the top of this eye is kind of a good landmark for you to kind of do almost like a half of a bell or something. That's kind of how I always, again, more bells. All the bells and whistles here. So I used to just kind of do that. So you got two little bells, and sometimes just to kind of show that there's like a fold or something, kind of add another line like that, and I shade the top. And that kind of shows you that, oh, hey, there's an underside to that ear. You can kind of do the same to that side and shade that side. Hey, he's got some ears. And I can't forget our eyebrows. So you could always go ahead and do little round eyebrows if you want, that kind of echo what's happening with the lid. That's always nice and appealing and easy for our eye to digest. Or something we do a lot is we'll do kind of a little line, a subtle break. Remember right there. And then kind of just get a little more personality in the expression. Something like that. It's almost kind of like a little, we can do one like that and maybe just one little hooked like that. But again, this kind of break and wrapping around the head kind of, again, suggests sort of an anatomy wrapping around a dimensional skull. And there we go. All right, he's starting to pop. Now, just because he's a cat, I like adding these really long whiskers. You just go, whoosh, just because. I think you may even have 3 on one side and 2 on another. I don't know which side, though. I probably should know. Well, every cheetah's got to have what? Spots. So this is kind of the fun part. We've done all the hard work of trying to get our character to be here and alive. So sometimes I just like to make these little dots around the perimeter. It's very important that you kind of keep it away from the main features of the face, only because if you start putting a spot near his face or his cheek or wherever, or his mouth, it could start to feel distracting or starting to compete with all those landmarks that we want to really focus in on. So another little trick here is if you kind of do a little half circle, it kind of, again, suggests that dimensionality, like you can't even see the other half of the circle because it's wrapping around that cheek. Now, one of the most important spots, though, is right here. And can you guess what this is? That is right. Little hidden Mickey ear. It's maybe not as pronounced as that in the actual character in the movie, but if you go back and watch the film, you will find a little hidden Mickey on his cheek. Starting to kind of round out these again. I just want to suggest that all this corner is kind of pushing everything up and sort of supporting that expression, that nice big smile that we wanted here. Yep. All right. I think he's got enough spots. Great. Well, he needs a body. You don't see Clawhauser's body too frequently in the film because he's behind a desk, most if not all of the film. So what I like to do is you can kind of just draw really basic shapes. Again, his body is probably just going to, generally speaking, come off like this. But I want to be a little more specific. Again, we talked about sort of that bunching up that he does, and so a lot of times we would make a pose that would suggest his character. So you can kind of draw a couple sausages looking shapes here. We'll bend here, and we can, let's see, maybe just try to get an idea of where some of these pieces might go. Let's say if we got maybe a little paw here. Trying to just slug in a little bit of a hand here. Again, I would say hands are probably the hardest thing to draw in animation. And so some artists are just gifted with that. I am not one such artist. So I have to kind of fumble around until I find it, but you kind of get an idea of a little bit of a forearm. You can kind of wrap that around, again, suggesting that there's an elbow here and kind of going up into the wrist and, you know, having something, again, something that's tight and close to all those features. Remember, the closer you get everything to this face, it's almost the better, because then, and again, we're trying to accentuate sort of that adorable feline quality. Maybe we could have, again, you could kind of slug these things in pretty roughly. Say that's something like a thumb, and you're gonna draw mittens. Sometimes mittens help me, you know. You start to kind of think about a hand like that. And this is just kind of a curled over mitten. Sometimes it's not the greatest hand, but I think it will do for here. Again, it's okay to kind of almost get a little looser towards the edge because really we want the focus to be here. So some of this is a little looser, totally okay. So let's just say something like this, where he's just kind of balling up into a little, let's see. And then we don't want this to just be directly off this elbow. We want to leave a little gap just so we know, hey, that's an arm and this is his body. So we're going to do that. And then you can, you know, he's behind a desk, so we don't have to. That's a good thing. I ran out of paper anyways, but we don't have to do that. We could even put a little name tag down here if you really want. Oops. I think that's how you spell it. Also, something I should probably know. And then he's got a little tie. You can see a little tie looks like triangle, and then like kind of like a longer diamond, basically something like that. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of suggesting that. And just to kind of show that, hey, he's not without clothes, we're just going to put a little indication that a little cuff. He's got his police uniform on, something like that. You just kind of do 2 lines that suggest that. There. Maybe another line that does that. And I'm kind of curling it to, again, suggest that there is, that this forearm has some dimension. So if you had kind of a straight line, it would not be as convincing. And then he's got these 2 little shoulder police uniform thing here. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, he's getting there. Right? We can see him. It's basically there. It's at this point that I like to just tie some of the drawing down and clean up some of these hairy lines over here. And we can almost call it done. Like that. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. It can be just kind of loose. Just want to make sure that you know these are what these pieces are. I think his forearm got a little stubby, but it's okay. Part of the charm of a drawing is it's not perfect. That's what I tell myself. All right. Great. Well, you can add a little nail if you want. It's a little, it's kind of being a little coy or cutesy. Oh, my pencil says I'm done. I have to trust the pencil here. Maybe just a little something to, little fine-tuning tweaks just to kind of suggest, hey, the brow isn't the end of the skull. There's still a little bit something on the outside there. Maybe just darken in some of these features again to kind of, as I was sort of drawing all the other stuff a little darker, either I can do one of 2 things. I can come back over with an eraser and sort of lightly dab some of these things to kind of, the lighter the line, the the kind of further it goes back into the background of our focus. And the darker, obviously, as I've been saying, it will pop. So this is that moment where I'll go, okay, well, what do I want you to look at? And that's what we would call directing the eye. If I did something over here, I would really direct the eye down there. I don't think we want to do that. Great. Well, I am thinking it's pretty close. A little sketchy, but what you could do with your drawings, once you're done, is you can always go back over it with marker and start to commit to these lines where you're a little more cleanly. And as you're kind of refining these lines, you can kind of finesse the structure and the anatomy and make it one nice clean line. Really just try to figure that out. All right. Great. All right, the last thing you got to do is maybe, you could do here, as I see, maybe shade this inside of the mouth just a little bit. So you can tell that it's kind of there's not a lot of light going in there. Kind of makes a little cave-like. Okay, the last thing you got to do, you can keep adding details all day, but really, at some point, you got to sign your name and call it done. There you have it. Little Clawhauser. Hope you've enjoyed drawing Clawhauser with me today. Happy drawing!